How are you doing? I see that
Cordie,
we are live here.
Cordie, what's happening? I wish I could give you a hug. Feels really nice.
There we go. I see some folks hopping on. We are excited to be hanging out. We thought we would bring a little daily live stream to you all, a bit of a show. Nick, we just did a podcast with you recently. We've been hanging out a little bit at different events, and um, you guys have some really interesting data, and I thought we'd just hang out, talk about golf instruction, bring some different people on, and do something a little bit out of the box while we're all staying at home.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Trying to do this probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday just to get started. And today we'll talk about my buddy Brad Faxon and some stuff that we've done together. But this should be fun. Some normalcy to people's lives. And it's easy to find golf content right now, but I think we can provide something that's a little cool and different and some insight into golf that maybe you haven't seen.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. How is how's the past couple of weeks been for you? Has your life been changed a little bit, a little different routine?
Yeah, we have an office of 90 people most often here at headquarters where I'm at now. Now we're down to two, and sometimes the UPS or FedEx driver shows up, so that's exciting for me. But yeah, we don't see a lot of people anymore. Our business right now is we've had everything closed. All of our employees are still with us, but that's where we're at right now. It's just a crazy time.
Yeah, no,
What
it
have you
really
been
is.
doing?
Well, you me in my basement currently in the guest bedroom, attempting to look like a bit of a studio. It's yeah, it's been fun being at home with a couple kiddos. It's definitely different. Definitely a little bit more challenging than the usual.
Different, fun. Yeah, I'm sure no one can read into that to know exactly what
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, I think I recorded a podcast intro the other day, and the 2-year-old walked in, and I just said, it's fine. We're leaving it in.
Yeah.
Everyone else is doing this as
I
well.
think it's
It's
good.
great.
You're gonna. I don't know. We have there are two dogs running around the office right now, so you might see some of my friends in the background here in a second.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, hey, if you're hopping on, let us know. Curious where you're at, if you can play golf or not. I'm in Minnesota. The weather is finally nice, but we can't play golf. So I've been mildly sad and depressed because of that. Nick, are you guys playing golf in
Yeah,
Colorado?
it's 70 today. It's gonna snow, I think, on Thursday, but that's pretty normal for us. And then it'll be 60 by the weekend again, and all the snow's gone. So there's a little bit of golf to be played.
Nice, nice. Well, I guess just quick backgrounds before we dive in. We have today we're going to take a look at a little video from a conversation with Brad Faxon you had. But before we get started, Nick and I are going to be your co-hosts on this series that you can tune in Tuesday through Thursday. We're going to be going live about 2 Eastern time. You can see us on Facebook, YouTube. That's where we're going to be, and then the recordings you can watch as well. But we'd love for you to hang out, get questions from you all, and that kind of thing. But myself, my name is Cordie. I run something called the Golf Science Lab. It's a podcast, videos, education portal where we're trying just to bring really unique insights to the world of golf instruction for you all, whether it's from the mental game to training to performance side of stuff in the golf swing and whatnot. And Nick, you're just on the podcast talking about the study that you guys did. It was fascinating to hear all about that. That
Yeah,
blew my mind. How
yeah.
much work you guys have done on that.
Yeah, that's one of our strengths is just because we have so many teachers and so many locations, we can study how people play a little differently than the golf instructor that's on a driving range every day who doesn't have the same amount of students. So, what you're alluding to, and I think what we're going to pump out a little bit more this week as well, is that swing true study. So, it's just the term coined for the largest kinematic study of golf that's ever been done. So, we took about we're up over 100,000 people in the study right now who we correlated how they swing when they play and how good they are at the game to find out what really separated good players and bad. So it's pretty elegant on how simple it is, but that's the material that you're talking about. And we're really just scratching the surface with that. We're starting with mainly what you can find now are the 6 positions that really correlated to skill, and many of them aren't really talked about. But we're going to stretch that thing out so much more. So I'm excited for that part, because someday we'll talk about this. We've got a new system to measure golfers that we're working on right now that will make that even more robust and add some cool new data points to it.
Awesome. Quick background on you. Where, how did you get here? Where are you from? Who have you worked with? That kind of thing.
Yep. Grew up in the Midwest, worked in New York and Florida for a long time, and then back in Chicago again before hanging out at our headquarters here in Denver. So I come into an office every single day, and it's my job to help 850 GOLFTEC coaches really have a lot of fun during their day. I say it that way because it's very easy to enjoy your job if you know what you're doing. So it's my job to arm them with any information possible that they'll need on how to go about their day. So how to give a great student experience, how to teach a golf lesson, of course, and even the smallest details like how to answer the phone and really get people talking about whatever it is that they're interested in. So that's it's my day. It's pretty boring, but then couple that with about 300 appearances on the Golf Channel every year, and then really producing those pieces and writing them all and creating all the graphics for all of that, and about 15 other pieces of my job, including doing a podcast with you, and you pretty well have it.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. So what we're going to do to make this as interesting as possible is we're going to pull in different pieces of content and chat about it. So today, you had a really interesting conversation with Brad Faxon just a little while ago. What's your relationship to him? How do you know him? And then what was this kind of conversation about? We're just going to and a half of it, but yeah, fill us in on that.
Yeah, so I met Brad maybe 20 years ago. He came out with a few members of a local club in Connecticut and played the golf course that I was at. I was really nervous because I had the course record, and I was afraid, oh man, here comes a PGA Tour player. He's going to shoot a better score, and then that plaque I have comes off the wall. He didn't play all that well.
That was not a subtle humble brag right there, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, no. It had some fear interlaced in there because I thought for sure that was what was going to happen. So luckily he didn't play very well, only because I think it was about 45 degrees and windy and rainy, and he was hardly excited to be out there. So I met him for the first time there, and then probably 10 years after that, we met on a PGA Tour driving range and got to hang out a touch more, just working on practicing some of his game and talking about golf with him. And I've known him for a long time in that regard. So we exchange texts and emails periodically. He'll send a swing once in a while. So I asked him if he would spend about a half an hour on the phone with me or on a Zoom call, just recording whatever it is he wanted to talk about. He's involved in so many things, like his Sweetens Cove Golf Club, which is brand new, and it's an awesome place, all the way down to how he practices with Rory McIlroy, which is maybe what he's most famous for, even more so than the Fox telecast that he does for the majors. So that half an hour Zoom call turned into an hour and 50 minutes where I said, I got to go. I can't even do this anymore. But we did some cool stuff. He gave me a putting lesson. We talked about his game. We looked at some video of his swings from previous years and when he was hitting the ball really well versus how he was playing in Florida. So a normal video lesson that we started doing, and then couple that with a bunch of questions he had about pop golf instruction, which is really what we're going to look at from a clip here today.
Yeah.
So I've got a short little clip. We should play it, I think, and then we'll talk a little bit about the context of what we described. That sound about right to you?
Let's do it. Let's see how we do our first segment switch here. Here we go.
Okay. And then to continue with that thought. So here's the club behind the player or underneath the player out to the right. Mm-hmm. But if the fix, where I've seen a lot of teachers today say, well, if you just get your arms to go out, it'll automatically flatten the shaft.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
It's way more complicated than that. And then if that were true, every GOLFTEC student that ever came in and sliced wouldn't slice, because they all have their arm too far out on the way down. So it's always pushing out too far. The shafts aren't shallowing. Much more that goes into the external rotation of your right arm and how to keep that piece in long enough, as opposed to letting your shoulder internally rotate, which is the start of really having your right elbow too high and the shaft standing up too much on the way down.
Yeah, so I mean, if you told an average golfer, you just push your arms out as you continue to open,
right,
the shaft is going to lay down behind you. That's going to cause the most slice I've ever seen.
Correct. It's just more complicated than that. So I'm as confused as you are when I see the stories of just push your arm out on the way down, and that will somehow flatten out the angle of the shaft. It couldn't be more opposite than that. So we spend most of our day teaching golf lessons to people who slice and trying to keep their left arm, this one, further behind them on the way down, not pushing it out. They already do that. That's the point you're making. And it's spot on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And,
so first, Cordie, were you expecting a nicer garage from Brad Faxon?
It's not too bad. It's definitely not too bad. And it's a good spot to make some swings in, I guess, for your
perfect. Yeah, and we looked at his putter rack that was out there, but yeah, he's still got a chain garage, I think, not even like the uber quiet ones. So anyway, what we were talking about in there was he had a question about how do I starting your downswing from the top down, should you push your arm out? And then there's a story that's really being told quite often of pushing the butt end of the club out. And when I say that, I just mean towards the golf ball itself. So if I'm hitting one right into that computer screen, which would be a ton of fun, but I'm not going to, pushing the butt end of the club out, and then that would help you lower the shaft, which should help you stop slicing. It sounds nice in theory, but as you can hear from him, he's very confused at that whole idea. And I think it starts with the idea that just by pushing if you can imagine where my club head's at, I'll back up just a little bit. On the way down, if I just turned and pushed my arm out, the shaft does get more behind me. But what I've also done at that same point in time is aim my swing direction about 20 degrees more out to in. So I might have shallowed the shaft relative to where you were viewing me. It looks like the club is getting further behind me. I've also changed my swing direction where I'm ready to slice across the ball even more. So effectively, I haven't done anything with my swing direction that's useful. And then 96% of the golfers that come into GOLFTEC for their first lesson slice or don't have any sort of pattern at all. The very beginning of learning how to play better, though, is to develop some sort of pattern. And most of them,
there we go.
Most of them on the way down push the club out too far, so that when their left arm's parallel to the ground, like what you see now, the shaft's going right about through my neck. You can see how it kind of cuts me off right there. Some even have it higher where it bisects their trail ear like that. And then the worst players have the shaft almost over their head at that point in time. And all of that is really reliant upon how much you push the club out on the way down. So Brad's confusion really is, how do I push the shaft out, or push my arm out and lower the shaft? But they're just not the same. Most golfers that push their arm out also have their right elbow too high. It's not lowering as well, which it's the pushing the shaft out and lowering your right arm would help you lower the shaft. But it's not just as simple as pushing the club out.
So maybe just to clarify, is what you're trying to explain is shallowing the shaft in general overdone or overused? Or is it just this one concept of trying to push your hands out?
So both. First, shallowing the shaft is overused, but it's overused and over-discussed because most people slice. So it becomes very critical for people to recognize early on that the lower the shaft is, the more likely you are to swing it out. However, it's not that it's that difficult to do. A better way to keep the shaft from just lowering uncontrollably, which I think is what most people who slice are trying to do, is to keep your lead arm further behind you, more across your chest than push it out. So I'm actually describing and advocating for the opposite of what is sometimes being taught. Don't push your arm out and try to lower the shaft. Actually keep your arm closer to you, further behind you, and that will keep the sweet spot of the club far enough behind you where you don't have to slice them.
Gotcha. And is that kind of a feel versus real thing of if you feel that, it's not going to look like that necessarily, but it's going to help you get in a position to make that easier?
I think so. So on the way back, when your left arm's parallel to the ground, you notice how you can't really see much of my right bicep or my trail bicep there. That's where your hands ideally should go. They don't have to. Plenty of good PGA Tour players who are trying not to draw push their arms out more than that on the way back. Dustin Johnson kind of comes to mind. But on the way down, when your left arm is parallel to the ground again, that's about where they should be sitting one more time. So if you're going to view yourself from that down the line side view camera that's most popular to look at, that's a good checkpoint, a good way for you to practice that feel. Then it's more challenging to have the shaft up too high or more vertical. You really have to start to pull out your right elbow to do that. Now, if you're the person on the way down who gets up to the top of the swing and then starts down by pulling their arms apart and has the shaft really vertical at this point in time when your left arm's parallel to the ground, then a simple way that you can practice that too is I've just got a piece of foam here between my arms. You can practice starting at address with the foam between your arms, go all the way up to the top and keep that piece of foam in there. And then on the way down, squeeze your elbows tight enough together where you don't drop it yet again. And it'll be really challenging for you to raise the shaft up and have it standing up too vertical on the way down. That make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And so that, like, who is that for? Is that for the person that their swing is too steep and their path is too far left then? Is that the person that's for?
Either of those or both. That's a great way to practice that. But I think a lot of people are trying really hard to always push the club out in front of them on the way down. Or that's just a thought of that's how you start down, when really I'm always advocating that there is some pushing out, but you also need to have a downward component as well. And most people don't have enough of that to start the downswing.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. We have a question that came in of, or just a comment that is a nice French bulldog in the background. So
that is a nice French bulldog. He has way too much energy today for no reason whatsoever. He's just sprinting around the office here. Makes this so much easier to do.
That's great. That's great. And I guess maybe like making this more big picture, right? Like a lot of us want to try to shallow the shaft and do that maybe as a more aesthetic thing, or we hear about it a lot. But we might not need to do that potentially.
Yeah.
So I maybe give us some range, like what are the things to look at if we should look at a drill like that or start thinking about this? Is it if your path is more than, XYZ to the left, or like what should we look for? Like who's a person that actually needs to make a change like that?
Yeah. So great question. So if you swing, if you have the ability to look at a radar data or just launch monitor data in general of your swing direction, if it is more than 3 or 4 degrees out to in, slicing across the ball, and you peel all those out to the right, if you're a right-handed player, then this is at least worth listening to, the idea of shallowing the shaft. It's just the methodology of how to do that is sometimes, I think, just misstated. So to shallow the shaft, you don't just want to have the shaft very close to horizontal on the way down. There's an appropriate amount to do that. I'm suggesting keep your arm in, keep your elbows close enough together where you can actually turn your shoulder somewhat outward like that. And that's what keeps the shaft shallow enough. But if you overdraw the golf ball or you hit it really straight, if you're trying to mess around with the angle of the shaft on the way down, you're probably more likely to hurt yourself than you are to, or I shouldn't say that, hurt your ability to hit that straight shot that you're getting very accustomed to without some serious professional help.
Cool. No, that's great. Well, hey, that's been fun. We've covered some good ground there. That was a cool clip from Brad, and we've got a bunch more. There's some really good stuff from that conversation you had with him. We're gonna tackle some more of those this week. We're gonna banter a bit more. We're gonna bring in some guests to help break some of it down as well. So we're gonna be hanging out tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then the following week as well. So make sure.
No blood this time, Cordie. No one got hurt. I think everybody started out okay. I think you got it.
That it did. Make sure to fire away any questions. Maybe we'll answer those next time. And yeah, this has been fun. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Cordie.